make a comment, it does something to the algorithm. It sends it out.
Really?
Yeah. My 16-year-old's got a new girlfriend, and his mom was like, "Your dad keeps popping up on my TikTok feeds." So
it's working.
Yeah, it really is.
So how many kids do you have?
We got four. We got four sons. One of them, well, you met the oldest. Connor's second. He was a Marine, got out, and now he works for AEP. I've got one that's a Marine right now. He is at Miramar in California. And then I've got a 16-year-old that goes to Wiley.
So after all you've done, in the Marines, U.S. Marshal, all this, what makes you want to continue pursuing something? It's just a drive you have, or?
Honestly, I think it's a servant's heart. I like serving the people. I get sick of watching people trashing this country. And every time I turn around, they're just doing something. I'm like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? What are you thinking? It's like these people that are interrupting ICE and stuff. I don't have a problem with people standing up and protesting, peaceful protest. That's what our First Amendment rights are all about. Because I guarantee you, if I didn't agree with our government on something and I went to a protest, I would want the right to do that. But when you start standing up and getting in the way and interfering, there's a difference. And I mean, they're protecting. A lot of these guys are sex offenders and child molesters and human traffickers and things like that. Not all of them, but some of them. But how do they know which ones they are?
Right.
And they go out there, and it's like, why are you protecting these people? So that's why I want to serve. And I'm tired of politicians. I hate a politician. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear just to get that vote, and then they go in, and they all come out of it richer than they went into it.
A lot richer. That's crazy.
I'm retired, and I get a check that gets deposited in my bank account once a month, whether I'm sitting right here or I'm sitting at my house or I'm in Austin, Texas. This position pays $7,500 a year. With perks, it'll be about, I don't know, 23, 24,000. And I say perks, I'm talking about when you get your stipend, your
per diem,
and when they're in session, you get per diem. And they've been in session so much lately that it comes out to $20,000.
If they paid Senate like that, we'd figure stuff out a lot quicker. they would stay there and figure stuff out.
Put them all on Social Security when they retire.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. It's like everybody's saying, I've heard it so many times. Jody Arrington, he's setting a prime example about term limits. And Jody Arrington is not doing that out of the kindness of his heart. Look at how much money he had when he went into Congress. Look how much money he has now. And see who he's fixing to be on the board of directors for right now. I've already heard, and I'm not going to repeat it until I know it's a fact. But it ain't out of the goodness of his heart, I can promise you.
I actually went up to D.C. in, I think it was April, and I'm in the renewable business from a farming family, so they like my company likes my story. They sent me there. I talked with all of Texas's representatives there, and that he's who I fall under in my district, and he wouldn't even speak to me. Like his people wouldn't speak. I mean, it was insane. Everybody else was so nice, and I can cut this out if I need to, but it's crazy. I'm like, he's got one of the most renewables, or I think the most renewables in any district in Texas, which can be good and bad, but that's the people that are voting for you at the same time.
So, like I said, I've been stopped up for like 3 weeks. This isn't helping, but when I was a U.S. Marshal, I was stationed in Abilene. I started out in New Orleans, went from New Orleans to the Mexican border. I lived in Alpine. I was a Mexican liaison, worked with the office in the Commandant days, but I worked with immigration and customs. I was on the DEA HIDTA task force, so I know all about the immigration problem. I know how to fix it. I know about the drug problem. I know how to fix it. So I had more experience than most of the candidates, or any of the candidates that I'm running against in those areas. They may know more about something else than I don't. But when I was a U.S. Marshal, about the time COVID came out, and it's kind of funny because I was one of the few people in the country that knew about COVID before it ever started. It was in 2019. And the reason is, and I'm not bragging, I'm not patting myself and making myself sound important. The United States actually had internment camps. A lot of people don't know that. That if you came in from China, you got put behind a chain link fence for 2 weeks. You got held for 2 weeks. And we had 5 of those locations in the United States. One was at San Antonio, one was at Miramar. I think one was up at Washington State, one was in Wyoming. But basically, you come in from China, you got stuck behind wire because we knew it came from the Wuhan lab. And so anyway, in 2019, I got sent down to Miramar, California to guard these people coming over from China. So I kind of knew what was going on before any of this the rest of the country did.
Yeah, that's cool.
And
not cool, but I mean, yeah, it's
kind of some World War II stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw the CDC come in, and it's so funny because I called my wife and I told her, I said, if this is really as bad as they say it is, I said, you better get strapped in because this is going to sweep the country. I said, they have no idea what they're doing. They had people coming in, and I was working a checkpoint, and they would sign in with me with a ballpoint pen. They would walk in their street clothes, and they would go in and clean and empty trash cans and wipe stuff down with no protective gear, no mop suits, no nothing. They would come right back out. They'd pick up the same pen, and every one of them would touch that same pen, wipe their faces, whatever. And these people were from, I think they were from Brazil. It was either Argentina or Brazil. And, but they were from there, and there's about 30 of them that were the cleaning crew. And then they get on a bus, and they would go eat like at the Burger King on base. And so they're spreading it there. The doctors and nurses that would come in, same thing, no mop suits, no protective gear, no gloves. Now, what they did on the inside, I don't know. But at the checkpoint, they're all using the same pen.
Yeah.
And so this went on for at least a week. And all these people in and out, in and out, in and out. And then finally the head of the CDC came down, and he was touring all the facilities. And he came in and commenced chewing me out, asking me, why are these people going in without any protective gear? And I was like, dude, you talking to the wrong guy.
I'm guarding this place.
I said, I'm looking at your badge, and I'm checking to make sure everybody goes in, supposed to go in, everybody comes out, supposed to go out. And I said, I'm not in charge of that. Well, like the next day, people started going in, and they had a trash can right inside the fence, and they go in and put on protective gear, and they go do the thing, then they dump it in the trash can on the way out. But I told my wife, I said, this is fixing to sweep the country. If I had a lick of sense, I would have invested in 3M or, any of the protective gear, the mask.
Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. But
did you get COVID?
I never got tested because I figured it didn't matter if I had it or not. I was going to be sick one way or the other. You couldn't cure it. So my wife and I came down with what we were pretty sure was coming. And we had planned a trip to New Mexico, had a private cabin that we were going to. And she wanted to cancel it. And I said, you know what? I said, we can be sick in 110-degree heat in Abilene, Texas, or we can go to this cabin and we can be sick in 70-degree temperatures. And what's funny is I took my family, and my mom and dad went with us. And I told them, I said, y'all, we're pretty sick. And I said, I may have COVID. And I said, y'all may not want to go. And they said, oh, we don't care. They went with us, rode in the same vehicle when we got up there because we went to White Sands and did some traveling. And they never got sick. They never got anything to catch it from us. My wife, she couldn't hardly breathe in that altitude. She was having a lot of trouble, respiratory trouble. But that's the only time that we ever got it. And I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But, I had to work with prisoners that were in a confined space. And, COVID went wild in the prison systems and in the jails. And I never wore a mask. I never wore gloves when I was fingerprinting them and photographing them, and I never got it again. And I think it's because I originally got it and built up antibodies.
Yeah.
And so this has kind of been a trip through Tupelo to get to where I'm at. But the whole point I was trying to make is whenever I was a deputy U.S. Marshal in Abilene, Texas, and I was in charge of the Abilene office in 28 counties, Abilene, San Angelo, and I wouldn't get the vaccine. I refused. And the Marshal Service got to where they were basically bullies. And I mean, I was part of a federal law enforcement group. We all had a text group and a messenger group, emails, and there's about 25 of us that were holdouts in the federal government. So picture how many people work for the federal government, and there was only about 25 of us that held out. Out of the Northern District of Texas, U.S. Marshals Division, I think there was only about 4 of us that didn't get it. And they kept pressuring us and pressuring us. If you don't get it by next month, you won't have a job. Then it was, if you don't have it in the next 3 weeks, you don't have a job. If you don't get it next week, you don't have a job. If you don't have it by tomorrow, you don't have a job. And I just kept telling them, I'll see you in federal court. I said, I'll empty my retirement plan. I'm young enough, I can find another job. And so I refused to get it. And when I called Jody Arrington's office, wouldn't let me speak to him. And his intern told me he didn't have a stance on the topic. And that's what infuriated me. And so I ended up retiring early. I was eligible for retirement, but I didn't have to go until I was 57. And I went at 51 so that I could run for U.S. Congress against Jody Arrington.
Yeah.
And I had no illusions that I would beat Jody Arrington.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really wasn't in. I always click the first button at the ballots typically, like all right here.
Yeah.
And, then I go up there and it's like, oh, man, I can't even get in your door pretty much. I mean, I go in there and all that, they wouldn't even speak to me. That changed my perspective a lot on it. Just like,
That's tough.
I mean,
Well, Stan Lambert here in Abilene, that's who. When I ran against Jody Arrington, I had a whole bunch of people in Abilene ask me, please drop out of that race and run against Stan Lambert because it's a more important race.
Y'all the state passes like 20 times more anything than in DC is what I was reading.
And I think they're right. I think it is more important. It affects us here a whole lot more. But there were some things that I wanted to get passed on the federal side. The retirement system for a congressman would be the same as my U.S. Marshal retirement. So it kind of made sense. If I got elected there, it would go towards my retirement. But like I said, I had no illusions I would beat Jody. I mean, he was really popular in Lubbock because that's the only place he ever did anything. I mean, dang sure didn't come to Abilene to do nothing. But I ran against him because it kind of made me mad. There was 4 of us that ran. I raised less than $5,000 because if you go over 5, you have to report to the Federal Election Commission. So I cut mine off at $5,000. That's all I wanted. My wife and I, we had no campaign committee at all. It was me and her. We'd jump in the truck and we went to 28 counties and went and talked to people and shook hands and met sheriffs and DAs and things like that. And I came in second place. The 2 individuals I beat raised between $50,000 and $100,000. One of them was the mayor in Anson, Texas, and I got more votes in Anson, Texas than he did.
Really?
So, I think I did well.
Yeah.
I didn't come close to beating Jody Arrington. He beat me like a redheaded stepchild. But I think I did well in my campaign.
For what you had in it.
And so now, moving back to this session, still had a bunch of people come to me and say, run against Stan Lambert. He shut down his office in 2020. We haven't had a state representative's office in Abilene since 2020 because of COVID, the big COVID farce. Yeah. And I'm going to call it what it is, guys. I mean, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-Constitution. If you want to go put something experimental in your body because the government says, anytime the government pays you to do something,
there's intent behind it.
Exactly. So I didn't see a need to get it. I started taking ivermectin. There's a deal called SNS, this is the National Strategic Stockpile, or the Strategic National Stockpile, if you will. Do y'all know what that is?
No clue.
Okay, so that's where they house all of our vaccines and things like that. So if we ever got hit with a plague, a bubonic plague or typhoid, malaria, we get hit with some kind of terrorist attack, we have warehouses across the country full of these vaccines. A buddy of mine, he actually worked as a U.S. Marshal for SNS and guarded one of the facilities. So they're all top secret. That you don't know where they're at. You drive right past them and never know that that's what that is. And he told me, he said, when you go in, he said, it looks like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark when they put the Ark in that warehouse and it just goes on forever and ever. He said, when you walk in, he said, it's like that. It's the shelves full of these vaccines. And he said, it's like 40 something degrees in there. Everybody has to wear coats because it's so cold. If you eat off the floor, it's so clean. But he said, I was talking to one of the scientists that work in that, I guess the chemical engineers or biochemical engineers or something. And he called me and he said, Chance, he told me just take ivermectin.
Really?
I started taking ivermectin, my wife, kids, never got COVID again. Never. The whole country of India cured their COVID problem with ivermectin. But
we're hitting all the good points right at the beginning. COVID, ivermectin, I love it.
Our country has been sold out to big pharma.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly believe we can cure cancer, but it makes too much money.
Yeah.
Well,
And they're never going to allow it.
a big thing right now that I've been reading on social media is a vaccine that Russia came out, the cancer vaccine that China bought it from Russia, and they're. I mean, have y'all? Am I the only one that's
No,
down
I've
that
read
rabbit hole?
I've read a lot of stuff on that. And
They will never get approved here. Not in a million years.
Well, there's a buddy of mine that's got cancer. He's in Mexico right now fighting cancer, and they told him they think that they can cure it.
well, I mean, see, even like spine problems, you go down to Mexico and go get stem cell treatment, and you're fixed. And why can't we do that here?
So one of
can.
the
Big pharma.
Yeah.
one of the things I wrote down to talk to you about was the medical bills, because our son, who's 7 now, he was pretty sick when he was 2 to 3, and now he's got another problem that nobody can really tell us exactly what it is, what's causing it. But he's got a buildup of spinal fluid, and we have to go to Fort Worth ever so often to see a specialist. But he had pneumonia a couple times whenever he was probably about 2, and so we're a self-employed family that doesn't have insurance at the time. And is there anything that can be done about I know you touched on there's kind of a monopoly in Abilene right now.
Not kind of.
Yeah, it is. But it nearly bankrupted us both times that he went to the hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, the second time he spent 5 nights, and I forget exactly what we had to pay to. But he, I mean, at first we kept telling the doctor something's wrong, and here's some more antibiotics, and it got bad enough, which I was at work, and my wife's like, we gotta go to the emergency room because he's getting real bad. And if we wouldn't have got to the emergency room, there's no telling what would happen. But those 5 nights we were not that old, no insurance. And I mean, is there anything that can be done about that?
Oh yeah, we I'm all for limited government. I think limited government is better government, but there are areas of our government that need to be governed, and insurance companies is one of them.
Wow.
Insurance. Well, and Barack Obama, he kind of sold us out. This dang cigar keeps going dead. I'm just going to quit.
Try one of these.
Barack Obama sold us out because there was a lot of people self-employed that didn't want health care. But they said, you know what, I'll go and I'll pay cash.
Hey, you can't afford it.
Yeah.
And then he said, no, you've got to have it.
We
If you
had
don't,
to pay the fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to pay a $600 fine every year when we did our
Yeah.
taxes or whatever.
you get fined if you don't have it. I have a friend of mine that he went to Hendricks Hospital, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I'll try to get this thing going. But he went and he gets a bill for like $600 like a month later. And I don't remember he had that in my eyes and all this stuff. And so he ends up calling their billing department. And he said, I don't understand why I got this bill, for $600. Because I've got insurance. It should have covered it. I met my copay. It should have been all covered. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, let me look at it. He goes, oh, we didn't show that you had insurance. He said, can you give me that information? Gives it to him over the phone. A month later, he gets a new bill. $1,600.
Yeah.
Okay. So he calls him back and he said, hey, I got another bill. He said, now it's $1,000 higher. He goes, well, that's the bill with insurance. And he goes, you telling me if I don't have insurance, it's cheaper, but I have insurance that I pay into every stinking month, and now it's $1,600. And they said, well, yeah. And he goes, well, can I go back to
Not having it.
yeah, can I go back to the other price? Well, no, because you have insurance. Well, I'll call him right now and I'll cancel it. And he goes, well, no, because we know that you were covered during that point. Now you've already told us.
I saw a pharmacist talking about this exact same scenario. Somebody walks in, they don't have insurance, they pay $10 out of pocket, some like a scenario like that. You have insurance, your copay on this medicine's $150. Like it's insane.
Well,
But if you want to go get insurance out of pocket, I've always had a job that pretty much covers most of my insurance. But you wanted to go get insurance on a private plan for you and your wife and 2 kids, you're going to be paying $1,500 a month. You know, it's like,
Well, and I've got a lot of doctors, anesthesiologists, surgeons, people like that are supporting me because I want to do away with the monopoly Henderson Health Care has. That's why I've asked them. Norm Dozier, he's an anesthesiologist in Abilene that has a pain clinic on Treadway. Great guy, super great individual. And I've asked him, I'm like, Norm, tell me, I don't understand, why is there such a problem with billing? And it's a nightmare. And so the way it's put to me, and I may be misunderstanding it because I'm not in the medical field, so I have to rely on people to educate me. And he said, if we know that Medicaid, for instance, is only going to pay 85%, then we know we have to increase the amount of our bill enough that we get, like if an MRI is going to cost us $600, but they're only going to cover, X or, 35% or whatever, we have to inflate that bill so that we actually get enough to cover what our expenses were. And I'm like, that is just a big Ponzi scheme. I mean, that's
exactly.
What's the point of insurance if they can do that? I mean, I thought there was some bill that passed, I don't know, it's been 5-6 years ago, where they had to post the prices. Like, this is the price at every hospital. But I don't see that anywhere.
No, and that's one thing they're pushing for Hendricks to have to do, since we fall under a COPA that was pushed by Stan Lambert and another representative out of San Angelo, and it only affected 8 counties. The Federal Trade Commission actually sent them an email, and I've got a copy of it, that said, do not allow this monopoly to happen. It's going to devastate your communities. Well, what they did? They put the legislation forward and it passed. And you know why? Because it only affected 8 counties. No other representative cared because it didn't affect their county. So they're like, oh, yeah, I'll vote for it.
And you can't go to the office and drop about it.
Yeah. So that got passed. And now we've got this COPA where Hendricks Hospital could buy out Abilene Regional. And there's multiple problems with that. Abilene Regional was a for-profit business, so they paid property taxes. That's huge going into some of the local schools. Cooper, Wiley, ISD. Hendricks bought them out. They're a nonprofit. They don't pay property taxes. So we lost all of that revenue. Okay, so that's one thing. Hendricks Hospital, they netted after expenses over $200 million last year.
How are they a nonprofit if they're netting that much?
A nonprofit can make money, but it has to go back into the corporation. But that doesn't mean you can't pay your CEO $1.5 million a year, which they do.
Yeah.
Their CEO makes $1.5 million a year. And so they can inflate these prices. And when you go in, and even my dad had asked me, well, I don't see the problem with the medical. What's the big deal? I said, Dad, they can charge you anything they want to. And let's say that your insurance is going to cover X. They're going to inflate this bill up now because there's no competition. They're the only game in town. And I said, you're going to be stuck for the rest.
Well, and another problem with that is, like when my son was in the hospital, the doctor would come see him once a day and spend maybe 5 minutes in the room with him. There was no doctor looking after him the rest of the time, which the nurses are great. I'm not knocking nurses at all, but they can't make a decision for the patient like a doctor can.
Well, and they've got so many traveling nurses and traveling physicians now because they get paid a lot of money to travel. I know a lot of them that do. But here's the other problem. You got a monopoly. And now Hendricks Hospital has all the doctors signing non-compete clauses. So when you go to work, you come to Abilene, you move your family, put them in school, buy a nice house, you're working for Hendricks Hospital, and you're like, I'm going to start my own practice. I'm going to go out in town. I'm going to start my own practice. Can't.
Yeah.
Can't. You got a non-compete clause. So now you can if you want to pay back a year's salary.
So how is it right that we have a nonprofit hospital running all of Abilene, paying no property taxes, profiting $200 million a year, and yet we have people that maybe are inside $20,000 a year that are paying back $10,000 in property tax? How's that right?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, if elected, I really want to dive into and start researching because I think there needs to be some legislation and some caps on some stuff. If you make over this, then you're going to pay a portion of property taxes, or you're going to do this. I was on the board of directors for Disability Resources for about 13 years. For half that time, I was either the chairman or the vice chair of the board. And they're a $13 million nonprofit that helps people with mental disabilities in and around the Abilene area. Great organization. If I wasn't running for office, I would still be there. And I'm still active. I make handmade knives and spurs and buckles and stuff. And every year they'll call me, would you donate a knife? Or, I think at their annual dove hunt, I was the auctioneer for the last couple of years. I love Disability Resources. There's a difference. Even though they're a $13 million company, their CEO gets paid about $120,000 a year top. We pay the employees there a competitive salary, not exorbitant, and we don't charge exorbitant fees. We are a true nonprofit.
Y'all are actually putting that money back into business.
Exactly. So that to me is where the difference lies. And honestly, it's not so much that they're the only hospital in town. You go to Sweetwater, they have one hospital. You go to Anson, they got one hospital. Brown County, Hendricks bought out Brown County. So, but even before that, Brown County was the only hospital in town. Shannon Hospital bought out whatever hospital was there. They're the only hospital in town. But what my problem is when they start doing the non-competes.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of neurologists in Abilene. You can't find one. You can't find an OBGYN because once they leave Hendricks, they got to leave town.
Yeah.
So that is the problem with having non-competes. And when I get in, I want to try to get legislation passed that will make it illegal to have a non-compete when you fall under the COPA.
That doesn't even seem right to me. Why, if you think you can go to somewhere and help people more, why would any hospital in the world have a problem with that?
Well, and I brought that up at the forum. I said, if Hendricks Hospital cared more about your health care as a nonprofit, they're here to help, then they wouldn't have a problem with a doctor leaving their facility and starting his own practice. There's some things that I hate to even mention this because I haven't checked the validity of it. One of the doctors in town is saying that they're actually violating federal law by they're forcing their doctors and nurses and stuff to refer them to Hendricks owned other businesses like X-rays, MRIs, things like that. That's against federal law. I have not checked the validity of that, so
I believe it.
But if elected, I can promise you we will be looking into that. Because that's the other problem with being the only game in town. Then you start referring people to your X-ray stuff, to your MRI and imaging centers, and your, this, that,
you get all the profit.
You get everything.
Yeah.
You get everything. And I've had more. I can't even count them on both hands how many doctors have told me, I'll tell you anything you want to keep my name out of it because Hendricks Hospital is vindictive and they will bankrupt me. And I just looked at him. I'm like, you're a grown man. Are you serious? You're telling me this? And he said, I'm not kidding. He said they're vindictive, and they've actually been referred to me as the mob of Abilene, which I just kind of laughed at. But that's one of the big things on my platform is medical reform. We've got to, and I told him at the forum that I said, I don't care what happens in Austin, Texas. I don't care what happens in San Antonio, Houston. I care about the state of Texas and what goes on there. I'm going to fight for HD 71, the 4 counties that I'm going to be over to get our share of the pie. Just like on the last election, the voting cycle, they had like water rights. They had some stuff in there to study and do a study on the water and try to improve water in the state of Texas. That's not going to affect us out here.
Yeah.
That's Austin, Texas, looking out for Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. So we need somebody that's going to be there to fight for us and say, yeah, we got a water problem.
So we're talking about medical stuff, and we can cut this out if we need to, but I know in a lot of our age demographic, medical marijuana, recreational marijuana is a topic, and then gambling is a topic in Texas that a lot of states around us, I mean, Oklahoma, New Mexico, they both have some or full marijuana legalization. Oklahoma, I think, just has medical. Is there any chance of that happening in Texas, and would you support it?
I think it'll end up happening. My issue, and this is from the law enforcement side, I'll tell people out there right now, I use medical THC. I'll go through like a week or 2 weeks of insomnia. I just cannot sleep. and they make these little drops, and I put 5 under my tongue, and I go to sleep like a baby. And it kind of gets me out of my insomnia. It's non-addictive. I have no problems with things like that. My problem with marijuana, well, I'm kind of for and against it, and I know that sounds weird, but you can drink yourself to death. I have never heard of a single person smoking enough pot they died. So I've always been amazed at why that is not legal and alcohol is.
Well, see, and that stuff they were selling in all the gas stations, within the last year that they finally are shutting down, that had way worse effects than the legal stuff you could go get at a dispensary in New Mexico, wherever. And like, you didn't know what was in that. I mean, I've had friends that did that, and they were calling ambulances because they thought they were dying.
My problem with it is I honestly, from the law enforcement side, I see it as an introductory drug. Okay, so like most people who drink alcohol, they don't start out with hard liquor. Okay, they'll start out with a wine cooler, a beer, or something like that, and then when they don't get the effect, they move to something harder. And I feel like marijuana is the same way. That a lot of people start out smoking pot in school. I never did. I'll be honest with you. I never did a drug in my life. I still to this day I have never smoked pot. I've never done a drug that wasn't prescribed to me, other than the THC drops. But I do see a medical use for marijuana. I know it helps a lot of people. It's a lot of veterans. I think there is a need to legalize it, especially medically, at least. Monitor it, tax it. But I think that there's going to be a lot of people, and I've dealt with so many drug addicts through the years, and nearly every one of them that you talk to started smoking pot when they were in school. So I have an issue with it going from that direction. It's got to be highly regulated, and it's really got to be educated to people that it's probably not as dangerous as alcohol in my opinion. But it is an introductory drug.
At the same time, though, if somebody wants to get pot, they can still get pot. You know what I mean? And why not have your state benefit off of it?
Yeah, if we tax the pot enough, we could totally get rid of property taxes, I would imagine. And
we can get rid of property taxes right now.
That would be awesome.
And
You got my vote.
Right.
The state of Florida did it, so don't tell me it can't be done.
Yeah.
Here's how we get rid of property taxes. Reduce spending. It is that simple. We don't have to up our sales tax. We reduce spending. We had a $55 billion surplus last year, around $55 billion would it be. And that's counting the rainy day fund. And I'm not saying we need to get rid of our rainy day fund. It's always good to have something in reserves.
Yeah.
But when you have a $23 billion surplus, and then on top of that, your rainy day fund, we can use that money and give back to because you don't own your home. I don't care if you own the note from the bank, you're renting it from the state every year.
Yeah, it's crazy that you could pay on a house for 30 years, pay it off finally, and you still have a monthly bill pretty much on that house for the rest of your life.
I live on a farm that my great-grandparents bought in 1908, and my dad grew up farming it when he was a kid.
But you still have a bill on it.
I still property taxes every year.
Yeah, they somehow go up to it every year.
Yeah. So we can do away with property taxes. We gave $1.5 billion to Hollywood to film in the state of Texas for 10 years. Okay, come on.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody filming around here either.
Who cares? Who cares if they film in Arizona and say it was in Texas? That happens all the time. Me and my wife will always watch a movie. I'm like, where that's filmed? And I'll Google it. And it's not even where they say it's in the movie. So I've kind of done a little bit of math on this. I do not see getting $1.5 billion back from Hollywood in 10 years. Okay. You pick a movie that came out last year. I don't go to the movies anymore. I'm antisocial. I'd rather watch stuff in my house. But pick a movie and they'll say it costs $15 million to film. Okay, or $20 million to film, whatever it is. Okay, how many times do you have to times that to get to 1.5 billion?
Well, and I would assume
we could fund every single movie over 10 years for Hollywood with that money. And I don't know that we would ever see the return on it.
Yeah, well, I would assume most of that $15 million is going to go to the star actors that are going to make $1 million off that movie that don't live here. They live in Hollywood.
Well, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson were big in pushing that legislation, and they've done this commercial that got sent to me. It's hilarious. They're driving in a car, and they've got Dennis Quaid in the back seat in handcuffs, and they're all discussing Hollywood coming to Texas. And of course, Matthew McConaughey said, doing his fingers or whatever.
All right.
Yeah, all right. We'll bring Hollywood to Texas. All right. And he said, you got to look at how many sets we're going to build. And we're going to build this, and we're going to do this. And it's like, well, you're probably not going to the mom and pop lumberyard. You're going to Home Depot. You're going to Lowe's. You're giving money to corporations, not mom and pop. You may have the local coffee shop bringing y'all coffee on the set. You may be buying lunches for a year. I don't see the $1.5 billion
and then
reimbursement.
They're not having to pay a state tax because then they're filming in Texas, so they're making 30% more. Yeah. So anyway, we got to quit stupid stuff like that. We got to start looking at what we're spending money on. Shut down all of this nonsense, all these kickbacks to public officials. We can stop property taxes. If nothing else, we could very much reduce it. But you got to understand also, the state of Texas does not set property taxes. Y'all know that, right?
No,
State of Texas doesn't get property taxes.
I don't.
Well,
That's by your
I'm
local government. That is set by Jones County Abstract Office. They set how much your property rate goes up.
But
Your
that's
values.
governed by Texas, correct?
It's not governed by Texas, but they get a portion of stuff that's happening. But your taxes are based on your local tax office. Okay, so that's why it's so important who you vote for in your local elections too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go up there and say I'm going to fix property taxes. There's not much of a way to do it other than control spending. Okay, because it is going to be at your local level where they set your property taxes.
Yeah. So what do you think about the gambling aspect of that question?
I don't have a problem with the gambling side. I honestly don't. I mean, everybody that's watching this right now, probably 90% of them have packed up and gone to Vegas. Or they drive up to Wichita Falls, cross the border, and go to the Kiowa Casino
Every other weekend.
weekend.
There's a lot of people in it.
Every time I go to the casino, I run into 5 or 6 people that fight.
Those people could be here, eating here, sleeping here, spending their money here.
Why
They're
not?
spending it in Oklahoma.
And getting tax revenue from that. Yeah. So I would much rather see a casino be built outside of Abilene, Texas, and I maybe shoot myself in the foot by saying that. I'd rather see that than an AI facility that's making trillions of dollars and not getting taxed for 10 years.
See, I'm on the fence about the AI stuff. I mean, it's benefiting the community in some aspects, and I mean, I'm in the renewable worlds, and I wanted to ask you more about this too because I grew up in a farm community. I've always worked for my money. You know what I mean? And I found a path in this renewable world and ran with it, and I really enjoy it. And I mean, how do you balance that, especially in this part of the world where it's blowing up right now? Like, I mean, these AI plants, they're going to use more electricity than the city of Abilene, but on the other side of that, you have to have electricity there. So, solar plants, they get more hate than anyone, but Texas is consuming the energy. We have to have it. So, where are you standing on that?
But before we go too far, me and Blaze we butt heads about this. Every single podcast this gets brought up. So I've lost rent ground to a solar farm.
Yep.
The best ground I had. And whenever it was time for the solar farm to be built, it was, all right, Gage, you're out of here. And that's income for my family, food on our table that's not there anymore.
So, but from another aspect of that, though, he maybe was employing one extra person for that farm. The solar farm comes in. They have 5 local jobs here full time forever. They're good paying jobs. One person loses, another person gains, another 5 people.
How many thousands of people lost because he lost that? Because as a farmer, you're not farming for yourself. You're farming for the country.
But that's a whole nother topic. Those farming prices for everything. The infrastructure of farming.
The infrastructure that the cotton industry supports here. Not only the gin, everybody that works there, the truck drivers, the seed crushing plant in Lubbock, where the oil mill up there, all the dairies that the Burrs and everything goes to.
Well,
I see that, but I support I support every local business. I go spend $1 million a year at least on local businesses alone, use record, all that just off of a 3,500 acre patch. There's not a farmer that's gonna float that much money into that many local businesses on a 3,500 acre patch than a solar farm.
Well, another thing you got is you got gas pipelines coming in, you got transmission lines, you got all this stuff. If elected, I want to pass legislation that eminent domain cannot be claimed on agricultural land. Eminent domain started with public utilities because the rural area needed power. So they said, hey, it's for the good of the community. We've got to come across your land, eminent domain. Nonsense. Now we've got it for companies that are making trillions of dollars. And if Joe the farmer has 100-acre spot right in the middle of where they're wanting to come across, and he says, yeah, no, they say, eminent domain, we're going across you anyway. They have the money, they can go around it.
Yeah.
They can divert, they can do whatever. So if elected, that's one of my pushes too, is to pass it in the state of Texas where eminent domain cannot be claimed against agricultural, because agricultural benefits the entire world.
Yeah.
Not just so it's for the good of the community too.
No, and I agree with agriculture benefiting everybody. I think it's a necessity. I mean, it's obviously a necessity. We eat it. It's on our clothes. Everything. I mean, everything we do is.
Well, here's something I brought up at the forum the other night. We were talking about the AI plant and solar farms and what we would do with ERCOT, how we enforce the grid.
Yeah.
Our public officials sold us out. Rick Perry, when he was governor, he sold us out. When he first started letting these wind turbines come in the state of Texas, okay? I have a buddy of mine that worked for the wind turbines, and I'd go out there, and it'd be a 10-mile-an-hour wind. Not one of them's turning.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, how come the wind turbines aren't turning? I said, it's got a 10-mile-an-hour wind. He goes, well, when the power grid's full, we have to shut it down because there's nowhere for the power to go. And I said, okay. I said, why did our governor and our elected officials say, yeah, you can build those right outside of Anson, Texas, but you're going to build a substation. And when the grid gets full, you're going to divert that power to that substation to go to that town. And we're going to charge those people 2 cents a kilowatt because it's in their backyard.
That'd be a lot better than what's going on now.
I'm not a wind turbine guy. I think so.
Or even the solar farms.
I think this. Well, like so at my plant, we put out 452 megawatts all day, pretty much every day. That's enough to power all of Abilene. Well, just my one.
You've worked at both solar and wind. I mean,
I don't believe in wind. I mean, what it would take 50,000 acres of wind to produce what my 3,500 acre solar farm produces.
Okay, then how come our electric bills aren't going down?
Because we're putting AI facilities in. And Texas's demand in the next 3 years is going to go up 50%.
Okay, well, and this is a number that I read online that said 324 AI facilities are going in the state of Texas.
I mean, I don't agree with AI.
Well, but I'm going to ask you, because you said a while ago AI was bringing a benefit.
It brings a benefit. It does bring good jobs.
What is the benefit? Past 5 years when they're building it. So what is going to be the benefit to my community when they only have 50 to 100 people employed at that facility?
No.
And they're $1 trillion company.
Yeah, no. But, I mean, I think the benefit is for the 5 years of construction that they're there, you're going to have local vendors. I mean, there's trucking companies from here, every single one of them.
Oh, I see them.
They're running straight tabling. Right
I see them. They come right out past my property.
So they're benefiting off that now. Then you're going to have 50 to 100 jobs that are good paying jobs, bringing people into the community. There's 40,000 RV parks now where people are making money off of that, which
I agree for 5 years.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, whenever there's 50 to 100 employees, you're going to have the money that's spent on local vendors from the AI plant. I mean, same with us. We spend money. Spur, Jayden. I brought Jayden's robotics team out to the site the other day, go do school days. On top of that, give the county hundreds of thousands a year. So, I mean, there is benefits from it.
And here's my problem with it. Nobody was asked.
I mean,
it was pushed through. The first time I heard about it was on national news. President Trump said Abilene, Texas. And I went, what's he talking about? And he said, my big, beautiful AI plant's coming to Abilene, Texas. We're going to beat the Chinese. We're going to be top of the line in AI. We're going to be this, that.
How many acres is that?
I don't know how many they ended up with.
I would have known. So you're talking about you don't believe in wind, but as far as the wildlife and farming aspect, we can farm around those wind turbines. We can farm around oil wells. We can farm around a nuclear facility. But the solar farms totally destroy the farmland as far as taking it out of production, and then they build.
Multi-use purposes.
If
and
you
they build
owned
a
that
fence
land, you wouldn't mind.
No, I wouldn't if I owned it.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they build a fence around it that's 8 feet tall. Well, most of the wildlife, I mean, there's going to be some wildlife that gets through there. The solar farms here have an 8-foot fence around them. The deer, the pigs, the turkeys, whatever, they're not going in.
I have an 8-foot fence around mine, and I see deer in my fence every day. I see pigs in my field every single day.
You got smart animals.
I've got multiple. I got videos from yesterday of deer and pigs inside of there running in the snow. So I mean, if an animal wants in a fence,
maybe they built the fence around them.
Well, going back to the AI though, everywhere that I've researched that has AI facilities already, and I've researched those communities, and every one of the communities say the AI facilities are lying. So when they say they're only going to use this much water and it's reusable and stuff, they say you better triple it. Yeah. Because what they're telling you is wrong. It's going to cost triple what they tell you. When they say the electricity, that they have their own electrical systems inside, they're water cooled. They said, if you think it ain't going to affect the power grid, you better think twice. And so when they sell us on this stuff that, oh man, it's not going to use that much electricity, they're making their own electricity, they're not going to use that much water, I don't believe them. And when they push it through and shove it down everybody's throat without a vote, that's my problem. I believe in transparency in government.
I like that.
And the city of Abilene came in, said, this is happening. How about the people that live out there around that thing that had no idea this coming? And that was their dream home that they built and wanted to live there forever.
And then their value of their house.
They just plummeted.
I mean, there's houses all around the solar farm around here.
Couldn't sell it if they wanted to.
I mean, so I'm buying a piece of land pretty close to that, and it's a piece of one farm, and that's what I made clear whenever I was going to buy it. It's like, hey, I want 25% of the surface rights of the entirety of the farm. So that if y'all do decide to do something crazy like that, at least I'll get some money out of it. You know what I mean? Like
most people don't have that opportunity though. They've been living on this farm, and then the neighbors do it, so they just have to look at it.
Yeah, or mom and dad. Mom and dad, it's been in the family like mine since 1908. Well, right now it's split up between 6 grandkids and 5 grandkids and 1 great grandkid. And as family members die off, the kids, they don't want to mess with it. My cousin that's got his mom died, my aunt, he lives in Lubbock. And he called me the other day and said, I got an offer on our portion of it. It's right in the middle. And
it's not percentage wise, it's actually broke off.
Yeah, it's broke off. 6 grandkids all had 61 or 62 acres or something like that. And he said, all I can do, he said, if I decide to sell it is tell the family this is what I'm offered if y'all want to buy it. And I said, well, as long as you offer it inside the family, I can't see anybody gets mad. But that's what's happening. Family members are dying off. Mom and dad died off. Son grew up farming and said, I'm sick of this crap. I ain't going to do that when I get older. They inherit it. Well, look at the 4.6s. Look at the 4.6s. It finally broke up and got sold to Taylor Sheridan. It's no longer in the family. I mean, that's happening all across the states. We're losing land to solar farms, to wind turbines, everything, because the kids see more money in it than they did in farming.
But if farming was profitable, as it once was, if it was profitable in that, if I could go in partners with a farmer on a piece of land that I own and actually make money on it, it would be less appealing to a landowner to be like, okay, yeah, I will do the solar farm. If you were sitting there profiting money off farming, then that's not a solar farm problem. That's a farming infrastructure problem. You know what I mean?
I agree. And if our government, our state and federal government do not start opening their eyes and start doing some incentives for our farmers and ranchers, we're going to be losing it. And we're going to be buying more and more from overseas because nobody wants to grow and be a farmer anymore.
Well, how can you judge a landowner though that says, I'll lease this land to this renewable company, make $1,000 an acre a year on 300 acre place? I'm getting $300,000 a year. I've lost money on it the last 5 years. How can you judge landowner.
Well, I'm not judging.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm saying the government needs to make more incentives to where it's a no-brainer. It's like, well, I'm not going to give it to you because I'll make more money leasing it to farming or farming it myself.
That's what
I don't know if you know this about me. I farm mostly cotton. That's what I've done since I started in 2011 was my first crop, and it's been mostly cotton since then. We've done wheat and milo. I'm going to have less cotton this year percentage-wise than I've ever had because cotton is no longer profitable. I mean, I lost $100 an acre last year on my cotton, and I know this may not really be a state issue. And y'all both talked about Jody Arrington and y'all's problems with him. One of my problems with him is, Trump tried to push help for farmers last year, and Jody voted against it, from what I've been told. And he said, no, we're going to come out with something bigger and better. Well, his bigger and better was like 30% less money in aid to us than what Trump was trying to push. And you said he's got a lot of renewable stuff in his district. He's got a lot of cotton farmers in his district.
Ton of levelland, Slayton.
In his district, he's got a lot of money.
I don't see how he could stay in office with voting against the cotton farmers in the district that I would assume this district makes more cotton than most of the districts in America.
Well, here's how, and I can answer you that question. So when I ran against him, I think 4 of us running for that office, and I think the total vote, you have to look it up, I think it was around 87,000 people. Okay? Just say 80,000 people. 479,000 people in that district when I ran. And only 80,000 people.
Really?
Okay. How many of them do you think are farmers? So you farm how many sections? You start adding in 640 acres times however many. You got to have a pretty good spot to make a living farming. Okay. So out of the 28 counties he had when I ran, let's say there was 200 farmers. Okay. So you got 200 votes out of 89,000 or 80,000. Okay. So that's how is the farmers can jump up and down and yell and scream and their families and everybody else. What got him elected is Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah.
That's what got Jody Arrington elected.
Colt over there.
until we get this district 19 split up where we have a representative down in Abilene and one in Lubbock.
I was so curious of how that Abilene and Lubbock are would fall in the same district. That does not.
It goes all the way up to Plainview, bud.
I mean,
and all the way to the New Mexico line.
I feel like a Sweetwater cutoff would be reasonable.
Well, because they go off of population, it doesn't. I mean, what's good for Lubbock may not be good for Abilene,
and it usually isn't.
It's usually not. And what's good for Plainview or whatever is definitely probably not the same needs as we have here. Which is, I like that, like the district that you're running for, it's 4 counties and the needs, and of course the 3 counties along I-20 are probably a little bit different needs than Jones County because we don't, I mean it's a little bit different, but it's a lot of cotton farmers, a lot of cattle, a lot of solar farms in there, a lot of windmills out towards Sweetwater, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, one of my opponents, Liz Case, she's now telling people she's a farmer or a rancher's wife. Okay. I mean, doing what she can to get the vote. Her husband retired from Texas Instruments as an engineer. I think they have a hobby farm in Colvin County, not even in the district she's running for. And from what I understand, somebody else leases it.
So somebody else.
So it's like that to me ought to be a slap in the face that every person in the farming and ranching community ought to take offense at that. Because I guarantee you, when I was getting up every morning and going and breaking ice and feeding 51 animals with my daughter-in-law and my wife, I guarantee you they weren't out breaking ice and feeding animals. I guarantee you they were cuddled up in bed, with a heater.
Call to make sure that.
And I'm not a farmer or rancher by any means, but I have grown up in that family and the livelihood and all my friends and relatives. And I know what it's like. Okay. So I would never jump in there and make that claim.
Well, I mean, I love the. I mean, even when I get off work several days this year, I was coming to help strip. I love it. It's just what I can make work.
We need
for
to
me.
clarify. We were stripping cotton.
Yeah, stripping cotton. I was coming to help strip cotton, which I've done the last harvest, and pretty much most harvests since I graduated high school. I've held. I love it, and I mean, I come to hang out and enjoy it. But
Well, I love it too, but last year I had about 1,200 acres of cotton, and I lost on average $100 an acre. Well, that's not sustainable. I mean,
But being a farmer out here in West Texas is the only place that you can get a brand new truck every 2 years and carry a case of beer in the back of your truck to work every day.
well,
I don't get started on this argument.
I don't get a new truck every 2 years. I promise. I'm not one of those guys. But
I've got a cousin of mine, Marty Stanley. He lives out in Weiner, and he's a harvester. And so he's out. You may have hired him once or twice so that he comes out.
I got Blaze. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel for those guys too, because I mean, there's going to be a lot less cotton planted here, and that doesn't just hurt us.
Cotton, wheat, grain. I mean, you name it. And like I said, if our government doesn't open their eyes, I mean, and you know, I like Trump. I think he's probably the best president we've had in my lifetime, except for Ronald Reagan. He is all for America. Okay, he does what he says he's going to do. I just wish he'd learned to shut up sometimes.
Somebody
needs to stop talking. But what he did recently that really made me mad is when he brought in South American beef.
Well,
Okay, that was a slap in the face
How-
for every
how are we
single
gonna-
rancher.
How are we gonna give them $30 billion?
Yeah,
and
to
then we're
Argentina.
and then we're talking about a $13 billion help out for our farmers. How
And
are
I
we
just
gonna
took a
give
look
another-
at it, and I'm like, man, and I'm not even close. I'm not even pretending to be as close to smart as he is. I mean, the guy's done business deals his whole life. I'm sure that there's something behind it, and that's just like the whole Iceland deal. I was looking at it going, who cares? Well, then I started investigating and really looking at it. And I'm like, okay, I see the strategic.
You see the waters there and the
I see the strategic need for Iceland, and I understand. But sometimes I just look at it and I shake my head, and I'm like, you know, Greg Abbott's the same way. You know, Greg Abbott will do something, you know, like when he was putting wire down on the border. And even when Joe Biden was saying you can't close the border, and he did anyway, I was like, that's my governor right there. And then he'll turn around and do something completely boneheaded. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you're talking about the border. I mean, the illegal border crossings are way down. So we've got people that we know that have been in the States for 30 years that are getting deported.
Tell them their address.
I'm not going to tell them. But I mean, is there a reform that needs to be done with the immigration, in your opinion?
Absolutely. And I've told people, if the roles were reversed and America was in the crisis that Mexico is in, and Mexico was profitable and you know, just going off the books and making money and job opportunities, you think I would swim that river to go support my family?
Yeah, you'd be a hero.
So-
You'd be a hero.
See, like
Exactly.
what you said, like the people that are over here committing crimes, selling drugs, or whatever, killing people, gang members. I'm all for them getting sent back wherever they came from. The guys that have been here for 30 years that started a business, paying taxes, got an EIN number, and they're paying taxes every year. They brought up their families.
Very few of them.
There's very few.
Very few. And I'm not saying aren't hard workers. Very few actually get an EIN and pay taxes. Very
So-
few. You're talking about a low percentage.
Yeah, that I'm talking about one specific scenario. I know his kids, and she was valedictorian of her class, and
I probably know who you're talking about.
And I mean, super nice guy. I mean, I've talked to him a handful of times, but he was always nice. And I mean, his kids are super nice. And I just feel like, and I am, if you cross the border illegally, yeah, that's a crime. But if you've been here 30 years, there ought to be a statute of limitations if you haven't committed another crime since.
I don't know necessarily about a statute of limitations, but there ought to be a program where you could come in and say, here I am. check out all of my stuff. I've never been arrested. I've never been this. And you get your citizenship. Now, you talk about reform with immigration. That's exactly what needs to happen. Because these people that want to come over here, especially the hard workers, okay, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 years to get your visa.
Yeah.
Okay. We used to have green cards. They did away with green cards. The green cards is not even a thing anymore.
Well, do you think any of us could pass? Well, you probably could, but could me
I-
or you
I-
pass that test to gain citizenship in the United States? You think just the average?
There ain't no way. I went through the American
But,
education
but
system.
here's the other problem is a lot of these people don't want to be U.S. citizens. They want to come, get the money, send it back to their family in Mexico. It'd be like me. If I went to Mexico, I don't want to be a Mexican citizen. I want to get money and send it back. I still want to be American.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why we have so many Cinco de Mayo parades and all this. They still do this Mexican heritage. But if they would somehow streamline the immigration process, and here's what I think needs to happen. Because like I said, I've worked on the border. I was a Mexican liaison worked with the Office of the Comandantes. They need to streamline it, but also they need to start going after employers. And if you are working an illegal alien, you should go to jail. But here's what needs to happen before that. You need to be given a date or whatever. Say you've got somebody farming that's illegal. You know he's illegal. You get caught, you're going to go to jail. But here's your opportunity. Both of y'all go to the local immigration office. You file for his work visa and you file for his citizenship.
Like a sponsor.
A sponsor, 100%. Okay. You can sponsor him in. You can make everything legal. Now, what happens once he becomes a U.S. citizen? We start having him put into Social Security. Think about how many people we've got over here. What? Like nearly 20 million people came over here illegally. Imagine if 20 million people were putting their money into Social Security, which they're not, and they're not paying taxes.
It would make a difference.
It would make a huge difference, but you've got to streamline the immigration process because nobody's going to wait in Mexico for 1.5 years trying to get citizenship. They're not going to do it.
I've never thought of it like that. So I mean, pretty much an employer that's knowingly doing that, that's an enabler. That's just like a drug dealer. I mean, at the same time,
there actually is a law against it.
Yeah.
There is a law against it, but the U.S. Attorney's Office usually won't go after the employer unless you're caught transporting them in your vehicle. Then you can go to jail for aiding and abetting transportation of illegal aliens.
But as a farmer, I see why it happens because I mean, labor. Of course, farmers are competing with the solar farms, the AI Center. You know, now there's a Amazon deal in Abilene, and farmers can't pay what they're paying. So I mean, I could see where you can pay this dude minimum wage, or you could pay somebody else double minimum wage.
well, I mean, then the person making double minimum wage is making about the same as the person making minimum wage because you're not paying taxes.
But here's the other problem is you got these farmers that are exploiting these people.
Yeah.
Or ranchers or whoever, or even not even that construction. Let's look at the construction deal because I love farmers and ranchers. Let's look at the construction industry. You may have somebody that's exploiting them saying, well, I know you're illegal. So I ain't paying you minimum wage. I'll pay you $5 an hour. Take it or leave it, or I'll report you to immigration. A lot of these guys are getting exploited.
Yeah.
So streamlining the immigration process. Let's get them. Plus, here's another problem because, like I said, as a U.S. Marshal, here's what I saw. We don't know who came in.
Ooh.
We were constantly arresting rapists, murderers, human traffickers, child exploitation people.
A lot of them weren't from Mexico. They're just coming in there.
Did you know there for a while when Vicente Fox was president of Mexico, he actually emptied some of his prisons that had the worst of the worst, drove them to the border, pointed guns at them and said, swim.
Really?
And they came into the United States. So that is the kind of thing we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And we have law enforcement. Now, all of a sudden, let's say this guy's driving a car down the freeway, Texas Highway Patrol pulls in behind me because his blinker didn't work. Highway Patrol's like, yeah, I'm going to give him a little quick ticket. We're out of here. What does that think? He's a murder suspect from Mexico. Oh, he knows who I am. And he gets out and starts shooting.
Yeah.
And he's killing our law enforcement.
Yep.
So these are the problems that we face. Streamlining your immigration and getting them their citizenship where they can pay into this community. If they don't want to be U.S. citizens, tough, go back.
Yeah.
And that's my thought on it. You don't, the guy you're talking about, he's been here 30 years.
Yep.
Plenty of time to go get your citizenship. So people that get deported like that, I don't have a lot of sympathy for. You've had 30 years to do it. I've known people. I have been in naturalization ceremonies with the federal judge where he's swearing people in as United States citizens. People do it all the time. So especially 30 years.
Nobody had them tip to till they get caught.
Yeah. It's like, don't give me your sympathy card because you've been here for 30 years. Now, Border Patrol, there for a while, Border Patrol was finding Border Patrol agents that weren't U.S. citizens.
Really?
And what would happen is they were so short-handed.
How does that happen?
So they were so short-handed that they were hiring people and then putting them through the academy. And then it was 6 months to a year later before they could get their backgrounds done. Because they were so short-handed, they hired so many they couldn't get the backgrounds done.
That's wild.
When I was down in Alpine, there was a couple of Border Patrol agents that got arrested and deported.
Imagine applying for that job, not even being a citizen.
But the funny thing is, or it's not funny for them. So look at it from this sense too. Their parents brought them over here illegally when they were infants and never told them. The whole time they lived here, they thought they were U.S. citizens. Okay. And down on the border, there's a place called Desierto de Luz. And like back then, even a priest, if you came over illegally, he could get you fake birth certificates and stuff to make it look like you were born in the U.S. So some of these Border Patrol agents will come over here, get hired, do their background. All of a sudden, they're like, hey, you're a Mexican citizen. They're like, what? I've been here my whole life. How would you all of a sudden, if they picked you up and deported you to Mexico and you ain't got a family member, you ain't got a friend, you ain't got nothing?
I need a tax lady like that priest. That's what I need.
So I've actually had a U.S. Marine in federal court. So I don't know if y'all know this. You can actually serve in the United States military as a foreign national. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to serve in the military. Okay? If you get out and you haven't filed for your citizenship and stuff, you're here illegally. And I've had a U.S. Marine in federal court that actually went to Iraq. And he was in federal court because him and his brother were transporting illegally. So that's a bigger problem. But he ended up getting deported. And I think if you serve this country, your citizenship ought to be automatic.
Yeah.
Automatic. But he got arrested, did some federal time, got deported.
See, I feel like a lot of common sense things like that should be enforced that aren't. You know what I mean? Like,
that would be a good incentive for people to come here legally. It's like if you come here, join the military, do 4 years of service, you've got citizenship. I mean, that would make sense.
And not only that, that is an incentive. And it's just like, it's an incentive for kids too. And I've been pushing, I'm like, guys, we've got to start informing these kids because I tell people, I said, every youth in the United States of America has the ability to go to college. And I had a lady, she said, you're telling me the kids in the middle of Harlem can go to college? I said, 100%. Absolutely. Well, how do you figure that? And I said, they can join the military like I did. And I said, they go in, they get a paycheck every month. I said, they get somewhere to live. They get taught a trade, right? They have a trade now. They can get out and find a good job. They can go to college, better their education. I said, the problem is they're in 8th grade, 9th grade. They don't see a road or an avenue out of where they're at other than joining a gang and selling drugs. And if somebody would reach them early enough and say, man, you just stay on the straight and narrow, make good grades, join the military, serve 4 years, and they'll pay for your education. It's kind of like when they had the deal out to forgive everybody's college debt.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't either.
Well, I've kind of got mixed feelings on that too. One feeling says you signed those papers, you saw what the percentage rate, you knew how long it was going to take you to pay it back. That's your fault. But then I also see the other side. I think if you've paid that debt for 20 years and you're still paying on it, you've never missed, you've done your due diligence, there ought to come a time when the insurance or the loan companies ought to have a cap on it and say, you can only make this much more on a student loan. Okay, you can loan it to them, but you can only make 20% profit, whatever. Okay, 10% profit, whatever. But if you want to do loan forgiveness, I would look at it and I'd be like, all right, Gage, we're going to forgive your college loans, but you've got to join the military, serve for 4 years, and they're paid for. How many people would be willing to do that?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Well, if you're going to do college, if you're going to do that, you can't do it for people. I mean, so some people went out in the world and worked and built their life up. You know what I mean?
Me and you both went to work right out of high school. I mean, neither one of us. Well, you did go to.
I went to trade school. College.
You went to a trade school college. I didn't go to college at all. I went straight to work and started farming. But if there was somebody like me, like if I would have went to college and then started farming, in that scenario, like, okay, you join the military to be forgiven. Well, that wouldn't be an option for me because who's going to plant my crops and who's going to do all the work? But I mean, I see that for somebody that's working at just for a company, or I mean, that would make sense for a lot of people. What bothered me if they were going to do the loan forgiveness, which I don't know if they did that. Did they do that?
I know a gentleman it's actually on my campaign, and he said he had like $80-something thousand left on some loans, and he said he came in one day and had I don't remember what it was. He said it was a very small amount, like 14 cents or something, put in his account, and it was like, what is this? And they had overpaid. They paid off his college debt without even calling him, asking him nothing. It was paid for, and it overpaid it by like 14 cents. And that's how he found out they paid off his college loans.
So
So some of them did get forgiven. Yes.
See, I could have been for that if, like,
if you'd have known going in,
no,
graduating high school.
No, what I'm saying, so when COVID came around, it put farmers in a bind because there was a lot of stuff we couldn't get, and what we could, like, I buy Roundup glyphosate in bulk, and the price of Roundup jumped from $15 a gallon to $60 a gallon. Well, they put these loans out. It was a SBA loan, Small Business Association, EIDL. I don't know, whatever. It was a COVID loan for farmers, and we were led to believe that they were going to be forgiven after so long. Well, that never happened. So we've got these loans that we're paying 20 years on. And
did you ever do your employee loan forgiveness?
Yes, I did do that. And that was it was a little more streamlined than this big loan because, farmers could get up to $150,000. And most of the farmers I know applied for it. Not all of them got the $150,000. But the ones that did, now SBA has a lien on every single piece of property and equipment they own. If I tried to, if you were looking for a tractor and said, I want to buy your tractor, I can't sell it to you because SBA would take 100% of the money that you gave me because they've got a loan on
to pay off your loans.
And if I'm going to sell a tractor, it's not going to be a tractor that's $150,000. No farmer has made a dent in that money that they borrowed. If they could have forgiven SBA, people that were self-employed, I could have got behind the college for student loan forgiveness a little more. That's just my perspective of it.
Well,
I don't know.
I've seen both of, like I said, I was a Marine, but I was actually a pre-veterinary medicine major at Tarleton State University when the Gulf War broke out, and I dropped out of school and I joined the Marines. So I've seen both sides of it. I've been in college, been in the Marines. I see both sides, but then you also got other programs out there, like the CRP. We're paying our farmers not to plant crops. They can say that it's to rejuvenate the soil or whatever. You can do that by crop rotation.
Yeah.
You can go plant black-eyed peas one crop or something. I see it all the time. That's one of the best things to follow cotton, unless I'm mistaken, to rejuvenate and put some iron and stuff back in the soil.
Well, like when I was in high school, that's kind of when a lot of guys around here started rotating wheat and cotton or milo and cotton, doing a 50-50 rotation. And that made the world of difference. You'd make twice as much cotton on half the ground. You'd probably lose money on whatever you're rotating with, but you'd make twice as much cotton. Now it's just like, what can we find that'll make money? And
what's not going to lose the most?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at this year. What crop is going to lose the least amount of money? Oh, it's not cotton.
Yeah. And I know a lot of farmers that they hope for an insurance payment. They hope they don't make a crop, because it's paying more for an insurance payment than it is to make a crop. So we've got a lot of problems with our agricultural, and I keep telling everybody, and I've told my sons growing up, if you find yourself as the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I said, if you want to be a millionaire, you don't go to McDonald's and ask the 19-year-old kid that's making your French fries how to be a millionaire. You go find somebody who's successful, and you walk up to a millionaire and say, how do I make generational wealth? You tell me that. Okay, so if I'm elected, and here's the difference between me and politicians. I'm not a politician. What you see is what you get. I'm not going to tell you I have all the answers because I don't. I don't know that much about the solar farm industry and the wind turbine industry. But if elected, I'm going to surround myself with people who do. I will have meetings with them and say, what is the problem? How do we fix it? Agricultural. What is the problem? What's the price of beef right now? What's it selling for? What's this? How did it affect us when they brought in Argentina beef? How is it affecting us whenever they come in and do a CRP program? We don't want you to plant. How do we fix it? Yeah. So I ask people that are experts in those fields. Education, right now I'm an active shooter instructor for a lot of the local schools around the communities. And I meet with superintendents and principals, and I meet with a lot of teachers. And I always ask them, what's the problem with education right now? How do we fix it? I had a meeting with Wiley ISD just last week and learned a whole bunch from what they were telling me about some problems that Wiley falls into because the state of Texas tries to do a cookie cutter with all the schools. Everybody's the same. No, they're not. Wiley, when they're having to play a 5A school and they're having to drive all the way to El Paso to play a 5A school, the principal told me, she goes, it could cost us anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 to go play a football game because, we'll have to get hotels a lot of times because, El Paso is 444 miles from Abilene, Texas. And then to take the band and to do this, or if we just go, we have to drive all the way up to Amarillo or wherever. And she said, we don't get reimbursed for any of that travel, but in like the big metroplexes, they've got 4, 5, 6 different schools they can play all within an hour's drive. Yeah. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. And all the schools, but that's where, I told them, I said, if I get elected, I said, I plan on having a monthly meeting with educators. And y'all tell me what the problem is. And just like this medical thing, I had some meetings with a lot of the doctors and surgeons, and I said, guys, what's the problem? And so they start telling me. And I said, okay, it's kind of information overload right now. I can't fix it all in one time. What is the first thing we need to do with Hendricks? What is the first thing? And every single one of them said, non-compete clauses, we need to make them outlawed. And I said, okay. I said, if I get elected, that will be the first thing on my agenda is get the non-compete fixed. And then I will meet with them again and say, now what? Where's our next problem? How do we fix it? Let's move forward.
Well, it's just wild that we haven't had a representative that in this area that's there for the main things. I mean, education, healthcare. That's what you need to know about, and we don't have a representative now that is there getting opinions from the people who actually know.
Well, and Jay Hardway and I, we've met a couple, 3 different times, and I think Jay's a nice guy. I think he's a good family man. But the issues that I have with Jay is he worked for Stan Lambert. He worked for Jody Arrington. I don't know that he's ever had. I mean, I'd have to talk to him. And Jay, if you're listening, I don't mean this as an insult. I really don't. And I promised him early on I would not run a dirty campaign. I won't run a smear campaign. So I'm not saying this bad against him. I don't know that he's ever had a serious job. He's on the board of directors for Hendricks Hospital, and I think his family has a trust fund for him. So we are not the same. Yeah. We come from 2 different demographics. I still got to worry about how I pay my bills at the end of the month. I worry about this kind of stuff that he hasn't had to. He worked for Stan Lambert when the medical COPA came about. And now he's on the board of directors for Hendricks. I've got a big issue with that.
Is that not a conflict of interest?
Well,
how is that not?
And I will say, I will never vote for someone to represent me that's on the board for Hendricks. They are bankrupting families every year.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I'm not mad about Jay. I think he's a good guy. I worry that we're not going to get Stan Lambert 2.0. That is my concern. I would hope if Jay beats me, I would hope that he's not, and he will have more of an open mind. There's no doubt in my mind that he knows legislation. He knows Austin. He knows that. There's no doubt in my mind. It's the other stuff that I worry about. And I couldn't get past that. That's one reason I stayed in the race and kept running is I just felt like we had a risk to get Stan Lambert 2.0.
A politician.
A politician, and I'm tired of politicians.
That's good.
So you're talking about the CRP program a while ago, and my take on that. Whenever I was a beginning farmer, 2011, I was 18, turning 19 years old that year. No, I was 19, turning 20. It was really hard for a beginning farmer to rent any land around here. And I had help. I was farming with my granddad and used his equipment to get started. There was a couple from Lubbock that owned a farm not far from here that took a chance on a 19-year-old kid. And I appreciate the heck out of them for giving me a chance. If there was an incentive for people, instead of putting your land in CRP, which CRP payments are not much money. I don't remember if it's $30-something an acre. It's not a whole lot of money. If they could get that same amount of money for a beginning farmer, for a 1st-year to 5-year farmer or something, that would make a lot more sense to me. That ground's still productive. And, farmers now are going to rotate. That's just how it is now. I mean, would you support something like that?
100%. Like I said, I think the CRP program is the only reason people like that is because they're like, I still own the land, I'm getting paid for it, but I don't have to mess with somebody else on my property.
And it's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed, but that is the federal government trying to regulate prices. Is 100% what it is. They're saying, I don't want too much cotton, because we're going to import some. We're going to do this. I think they need to stop importing agricultural stuff.
That makes zero sense.
They need to stop importing it and make so much we're exporting it.
I mean, that's just like oil as well. Why are we importing any oil?
Which I think a lot of Trump's import-export tariffs and stuff have helped a lot in some of these aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, we've got to come up with new programs to get younger people interested in becoming farmers ranchers. And some of them that grew up that way, I mean, it's in their blood and they don't want to be nothing but a farmer rancher. But then you have the other side of it. I mean, I grew up with a kid at Merkel that his whole family is farmers, and his brothers, sisters, none of them wanted nothing to do with it. So when his dad finally retires and gives the land up, it's going to go to somebody that's going to lease it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm sure you had to try to get into it and compete with, everybody around this part of the country that was already established as farmers.
Well, and there's a lot of people that don't understand that most of the farms are leased or rented. Most of the farmers don't own most of the land that they farm.
No, I know some farmers, but about all they own is about 100 acres of their own land, if not less.
And it makes sense as a landowner to, okay, you got this guy that's got 6 or 10 tractors or whatever and 5 employees, or this kid that is using his granddad's equipment trying to start out. I mean, yeah, that's a risky situation. I understand that. But if you're thinking about putting it in CRP anyway,
yeah,
I mean,
that would make a lot of sense as having an initiative. But I don't know if you could ever get the federal government to do it because they're trying to set prices.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, so my wife went to work for FSA, the Farm Service Agency under USDA, a couple of years ago, and the only way she could get a job there was as a temporary employee, which there had been temporary employees that had been working for FSA for 8-10 years. Whenever Trump came into office and the Doge thing was happening, they fired every temporary employee in the nation. Our FSA office in Jones County is so far behind that, I mean, the ladies that work in there they're blowing and going all day long. I mean, there's no catching up for them. There's always something for them to do. And there hasn't been another position that opened back up there.
It's because the government cookie cutters everything.
Yeah.
They're all the same. Everybody's the same. It doesn't matter what department, what branch. They're all the same. Schools, everything. It's all the same. And it's not. It's everything is different depending on where you live.
Well, so this is brought up earlier about them implementing like 10 Commandments, biblical thoughts into school districts in other states. What would you think about that in Texas?
They actually did pass that in Texas, so that had to be donated, I believe. So, like, you could donate American flags and they'd fly them in the classrooms, and the Ten Commandments, they'd have to post them. But and here's the thing is, I'm a Christian. I'm an American. I'm good. And it's kind of like goes to the burning of the flag. Okay, and somebody had asked me about that, and I kind of did a TikTok video on it. I believe 100% in your freedom of speech. If I was so pissed off at the government, like let's say Ian Omar got elected as president, God help us all, I would probably protest and be burning the American flag because I would be that disgruntled with our federal government. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying, shoes on the other foot. I want to reserve that right for me to have my freedom of speech. But as a United States Marine Corps veteran, I love my country. I love that flag. There's so many people that died for us to fly that flag. That doesn't mean if you burn the flag in front of me that my wife's not going to have to come bail me out of jail. And that's probably what's going to happen. And I'm being 100% serious.
Well, that's probably most of the people in this room right now.
So I believe in the freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with you. So, if we all of a sudden got a bunch of communists, I mean, look what happened in New York City. We just elected a Muslim as mayor of New York City after the Muslims bombed our freaking buildings and killed thousands of people.
How weird is that?
So you can look at how this country is going. And so I really, really, really want to preserve our freedom of speech. Okay. This goes back to your question about putting religious stuff in schools. And everybody says, well, it's in the Constitution, separation of church and state. It is not in the Constitution. There is not one thing in the Constitution that says anything about separation of church and state. The term separation of church and state came from a letter Thomas Jefferson wrote. And he was referring to the Constitution and Articles of Confederation and saying that it was basically a separation of church and state. But there is not a guarantee in the Constitution of separation. Okay, let's get that straight right now. So let me ask y'all a question. Okay, you believe in putting the Ten Commandments in the classrooms, in school?
As a Christian, I do.
Yeah, as a Christian, I do. But at the same time, if Christianity wasn't the majority religion in the United States, if that came to that and then they put another religion in schools, that's the only problem I could see with that happening.
Okay, there you go. We have to be very, very careful the things that we are passing. Okay?
I could see how that could turn into that.
Did you know the Muslim faith is growing faster in the state of Texas than any other state in the United States? Okay?
I didn't know that.
We actually had to
That's
pass
scary.
legislation this last term, which our governor and our legislators did a terrific job on that, and it was outlawing Sharia law. We had a Muslim up somewhere around Plano in that area up there that they were wanting to build their own city, basically, and it would be an entire Muslim city, and it would be basically a Muslim country at that point. So let's say we all of a sudden get a Muslim governor. And let's say we get a majority of Muslims in our House or our Senate. Okay, now all of a sudden they say we're going to mandate that every classroom has a Quran in it.
Because y'all just mandated that they put 10 Commandments in there.
Yeah.
So we're going to
That makes
mandate
sense.
that we put the Quran in our schools and that we have to have a morning prayer facing the east or the west, and your child's going to have to participate. So how would you feel about that? So when I hear people argue about putting your own religion in school, I understand and I get it, because shoes on the other foot, I'd be the same way. I don't want my child having to learn the Quran. I don't want him all of a sudden have to be Catholic. I mean, that's one reason we came over to this country, is to escape religious persecution.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I'm a devout Christian. I have no problems with that, but we also have Christian academies that you can take your child to, and it's 100% based on Christianity. I think our public schools, we have to be very, very, very careful what we do. I don't have a problem with it. Praying before a football game, I got no problems with that. If you don't want to participate, don't bow your head, don't close your eyes. But we are in a Christian community. We're in a Christian state. That is the norm now. But we have to be very, very, very careful what we pass into law, because it would have to be repealed later. And if we have somebody of the opposite belief in power, what's the chances we're going to get it repealed?
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay.
I never even thought about it like that until that question was asked a while ago. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, what if?
Yeah, I think where the burden comes is on parents. Is you need to be.
So our last question that we ask every guest is, what is your ashtray confession? Just a confession you want to get out there, something about yourself, an embarrassing story, or whatever you want to put out there.
My whole life is embarrassing stories. Somebody that can't laugh at themselves is a pretty small individual. And I laugh at myself very, very frequently. I don't know. My oldest son sitting here, maybe he can tell you a funny story about me. I don't. I'm an open book. I mean, like I told y'all before this, there's nothing off limits.
I'm trying to pick one. It'd have to be one that got told to me. So we got this tank that's been on our family farm.
You gotta roll up here and tell the story.
That's right.
That way it'll pick you up.
If we're going embarrassing stories, obviously I can't delve into Chance Ferguson much deeper than what I've told or what I've seen. If I had to pick an embarrassing story, my mother told me about a time. Right. My mother told me about a time that my dad took them fishing on a stock tank that is on our property, and it's been there as long as the property has. And my dad tied on this lure, this rattle trap for my mom. It was his favorite rattle trap in his entire tackle box.
Caught a lot of fish with that thing.
And one thing about this stock tank is, for some reason, I don't know who came up with the bright idea. I don't know if the tank just naturally developed this way, but there's a fence line that runs down the length of this tank. So there's a shallow end of the tank that's just cut off by this barbed wire for no particular reason at all. Like even duck hunting, you kill one over the barbed wire, you're like, dang it! Like I got
to keep the cows on that side of the fence so they don't swim around.
Which it don't even do a great job. So regardless, it shouldn't even be there, but it's there. So mom casts it out, and this rattle trap just boop, right on this barbed wire. Now nowadays it's loose as an unstrung guitar string. Back in the day, you could actually kind of crawl all over it.
It was going across the tank. It was 2 strands.
Yeah. So
right above the water.
This rattle
that
trap
works
is
for
just
cows
hanging
very
on.
good.
This rattle trap is just hanging on the barbed wire, and mom trying to get it off, can't get it off. Well, finally the fishing line just breaks.
And then
Now
it wrapped around.
Yeah, this rattle trap is just hanging on the barbed wire, and Dad's like, "That's my favorite rattle trap. We're not leaving it." So he goes out on the barbed wire, and it's not like from me to you barbed wire. It's like a good 100-yard stretch, and so he's back and forth on this barbed wire trying to get to it. Well, the whole time the rattle trap's just sitting there shaking, and about the time he gets hand distance away from it, shaking, it just bloop, into the tank. Probably still there to this day.
Yeah, that was it would go forward and back, and forward, and my legs would go this way. And, yeah.
That's probably my favorite secondhand
I'm still
story.
mad about that rattle trap.
Yeah, y'all are going out there after this.
Still out there.
I'm going home and taking a fight with your mama.
Well, thank you for listening, and this is the Ashtray Confessions podcast.
And I'll say Chance Ferguson has our vote. He's got our endorsement, whatever that's worth. But
Well, you know what, guys? I hear from so many people that say my vote doesn't count. I know I'm not going to say who it is. I don't want to embarrass them, but they're 50 years old. They've never voted in their life. And they say my vote doesn't count. Doesn't matter. Government's going to do what they do. Well, I can promise you, if you do not vote, you are 100% right. Your vote did not count. And if you gripe about the way things are going, but you didn't vote, I'm sorry. You don't have a right to gripe. If you're not willing to try to change it. And one thing that I do want to talk about that we didn't talk about.
yep, go ahead. Anything.
They kind of mentioned it the other night at the forum is term limits. Okay. They asked, how do you feel about term limits? I feel that term limits are so important that our founding fathers put term limits in the Constitution. And that's why when people look at me and they go, how do you feel about term limits? I'm like, we have term limits. They're like, what? We don't have term limits. Yeah, we got term limits. If you don't like your state representative, guess what? You get a chance to vote him out every 2 years.
Yeah.
If you don't want him in office, that's up to you. So that being said, I'm putting term limits on myself. I mean, I don't care if you vote me out or don't vote me out. I'm only running for a certain amount of time and I'm gone. It's somebody else's turn. But we have term limits. If you don't like your U.S. congressman, guess what? You get to vote them out every 2 years. If you don't like your U.S. senator, you get to vote them out every 6 years. If you don't like your U.S. president, you get to vote him out every 4 years. But here's the problem with term limits. Let's say we made it mandatory term limits. Not just you ran again, the people got to vote you out. But do you know why our founding fathers did it the way they did it? Let's say you got elected and you are the best representative they have ever seen. You do everything right. You do everything for the people. You're not about yourself. You're not on the take. You'll sacrifice your time and everything for the people of your district. But all of a sudden they put in mandatory term limits. Now you got to go. That's why they did it the way they did it. So that if they sucked, you vote them out of office. If they were great, you let them keep doing their job. So everybody needs to really think about that. We have term limits now. It is up to you to get out and vote and get rid of people who are not doing the job they're supposed to be doing instead of letting the same people keep electing them.
I mean, from any other job, if you weren't doing your job, you'd be let go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
On that note, if elected, how long do you plan on staying in office as far as if you keep getting elected?
I told them that if I got elected, that I will run 5 terms. That's 10 years. You will not get me more than 10 years. I promise you. I'm retired right now, perfectly happy playing with my horse and doing my thing and being in my shop. You know, I make knives and buckles and spurs and things. Perfectly happy doing that, being with my wife and my grandkids. I will not run more than 5 terms. Period. That's it. And if I go 5 terms, that's great. Happy to help. If I get elected once and get beat the second time, that's great too. I'm not running again. You've got me for 5 terms or until I get voted out.
this is great conversations with you, and we're so glad you came
Yeah.
on. And
Yep. It's sure nice to meet you.
Well,
Yeah.
I've actually met. Which one of y'all's the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Let's say, because I've known you from when you were like little bitty. And I'm not trying to show my age by doing that thing. I know you when you're in diapers. I'm not doing that. But yeah, I remember you from when you were little and lived in Anson. Up there, I think it was a yellow house.
Yep.
Yep.
I know exactly where there's still my initials in the tree in the backyard of
Yeah.
the house. So, you probably weren't born yet.
That was your glory days when I came along.
I was the only
When you
child.
started stealing toys.
Well, yeah, it was fun. We appreciate it. So,
Well, thank y'all for having me. I enjoyed it. Like I said, guys, March 3rd, get out and vote. Get out and vote for your elected officials.
you got 2 here for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.